Sparky Pete in Liverpool, coming to you from Peacock Towers today. And I'm going to talk to you about GS38. Well, that's a patient GS38. It's a health and safety leaflet that was issued by the Health and Safety Executive sometime after 1989, because it mentions the Electricity at Work regulations, which came out in 1989. And the focus of it is the kind of test probes and leads that we should be using for live testing. And it mentions in the documents the particular focus is if we're working on circuits or equipment where the voltage is above 50 volts AC or 120 volts DC, then we really need to be thinking about using GS38 approved leads. Now the basics of it is, well, we can see there, that's an acceptable set of leads, probes and leads. If we talk about the tip of the probe, it says in the document 4mm, preferably 2, we can see that being demonstrated there. Finger guards to prevent your fingers falling off onto the live terminals. Fused or current limiting. Sometimes you'll have fuses in the leads themselves or at the end of the probe there, as you can see. Sometimes it'll be in the units that the leads are plugging into that they're protected by. And there's an example of a non-compliant set. And there's the full list of information about test probes and leads if you choose to read it. Another thing it mentions about the leads is they should be colour distinguishable from one another, if necessary. So that's the full information as far as we're concerned. Well, not the full information, but that's as far as the test probes and leads are concerned. I mean, it's an 8-page document, that thing. So, having said all that, that's a no, isn't it? That's a vintage bit of kit from the early 80s, I think, style tester. Much beloved by electricians of that era, but we can see there, that's a no. That stays at the bottom of my toolbox, though, out of the way. Enough said about that, actually. What do you think about them? Now, a multimeter. You might say, well, based on what you just said, no, but it depends what you're going to use them for, because, like I say, if you're testing on equipment or circuits where the voltage levels are lower than 50 volts AC or 120 volts DC, it's not a problem. Likes of that meter, if we were using the low resistance ohm function, not a problem. And I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in the manufacturer's instructions it says, well, these are the leads that come with the instrument. If you want to carry out testing above those levels that I've mentioned, you really ought to have GS38 approved leads. I don't know that for sure, but anyway, it'll be a sensible thing to say. If we move across to our voltage indicator, no problem. So we can see there we've got spring-loaded probes there. So we can either use them that way. We can push and twist them up and expose the tip, but again, it conforms to the minimum that I've mentioned previously. Here we've got an old Drummond tester. Vintage bit of kit, but there's nothing wrong with that. Perfectly serviceable as well. I just tested that this morning. It's got a little test device on itself. It was given to me by a student, that actually, but I've never really found a use for it myself, because those the tips there are very thick, whether you can see. So not use that one in anger. It's more of a showpiece, that one, as far as I'm concerned. If we move to some test probes and leads from the multifunction meter that you'll see me using in other video clips. We haven't seen that one in action yet, but nothing wrong with that. And then the leads, the main set of leads that I tend to use, again, you can see nothing wrong with them. Particularly because of that little tip there. Now, and they're also colour distinguishable from one another. The tip, I'm going to talk about that because I'm surprised that I've managed to keep the plastic tip for those leads, because I've picked them up off the floor many a time taking different classes. And I think I looked online one time and they were dead expensive, and I thought, I'm not paying that for those plastic tips. So I've sweated blood to keep those things. So luckily it's all come to fruition. I'm able to show you that they're still there. A modern set, I mean, that was 5-6 years old, maybe more. A modern set of leads, I've noticed that the spring-loaded type, like the voltage indicator, Now, lastly, as far as our exhibits are concerned, what do you think of them? Well, that's a a very precise set of test leads. What we're looking at there is, there's the point where they connect into whatever a test device we're using. They're MC4 connections from that would connect to a solar array. And we can see the fuse as well. I actually made them up myself because when I was involved in the solar industry, well, you could say we were making it up as we went along, or you could say we were breaking new ground if you were being kind. But a lot of the things that we needed simply weren't available. So I had to make those up. And what they'd be used for is commissioning a solar array to give us the ability to measure the current coming off the array, which we do as part of our commission process. I might post a little clip up specifically about the solar tools because there's a few other little interesting bits and pieces that are exclusively used for testing solar. So there we go. Let's just pan out a little bit. So any constructive feedback, always appreciated, because no one knows everything and there's always more to say.